All right, so we're diving into this idea of a pathless path, right? You've got all these excerpts from Paul Millard's book. Looks like a really in-depth review, too. We've talked about, feeling stuck on that traditional career path, so hopefully this will shake things up a bit.
Yeah, Millard really digs into those scripts. We're all kind of handed, the whole good grades, good job, good life thing.
Right, like it's all predetermined.
Exactly. He calls it the default path. And what's interesting is how he argues it's often more about external validation than actual fulfillment.
It's like society hands you the map and says, go. But Millard didn't just talk the talk, did he? Leaving McKinsey, that takes some serious guts.
Absolutely. Bold move. Makes you question, I think, what we even consider successful. I mean, by all accounts, he was at the peak, and yet...
Threw it all away for something more, I guess, personally meaningful. That story from the review comes to mind, The King and the Beggar.
Oh, right, right. Perfect example. Really drives home the point that those external markers...
All riches, but...
don't equal happiness. Not necessarily. The review really highlighted that for me.
It's not about, like, demonizing wealth or anything.
No, it's more about, I think, aligning your life with what brings you joy, purpose. And that can look different for everyone. Millard's own crisis moment, is what he calls it, really highlights that, I think.
It makes you think about those moments, those crisis moments that kind of push you to reevaluate. It doesn't always have to be, like, dramatic.
No, not at all. Sometimes it's this slow...
slow realization.
Yeah, exactly. Like a nagging feeling something's off. And those are valid. Don't dismiss those feelings.
Those are often what lead to the biggest changes, I think.
Exactly.
And that's where the pathless path comes in, yeah. Embracing the unknown a little bit. Finding what you actually want to spend your time doing.
Yeah, stepping off that conveyor belt, It can be scary, for sure, but also... Liberating. Yeah, that's the word. But, the review did bring up those who cling to that default path,
Yeah.
because of security, prestige.
It's hard to break free from that, for sure. Especially when it's all you've ever known.
Absolutely. Offers that certainty, I guess.
Yeah.
Validation, even if it comes at a cost.
But like the review said, it's about defining success on your own terms. Easier said than done, right? How do you even begin to do that?
That's a good question.
Yeah.
Millard talks a lot about this idea of enough. Figuring out what that looks like for you. How much is actually enough? So you can make choices that...
align with your values, not society's.
Exactly.
Like you're rewriting the script in a way. But it's one thing to say that, another to actually do it. Did he... how does he suggest people even figure that out?
He's big on, like, experimentation. Action. Instead of getting stuck just thinking about it, just, try things out. Little steps.
Curious.
Yes. Curiosity. See what feels right.
It's like we're explorers, but instead of new lands, it's...
our inner landscape.
Yeah, exactly. Our own potential.
And, one of the best tools we have for that today, the internet. It's like this whole other...
Oh, totally. You were saying how it's shaken up that whole prestige economy thing.
Completely.
Yeah.
You don't need those gatekeepers anymore, those institutions.
To tell you what's good, what's worthy.
Right. You connect directly with your audience, build a community.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
It's like that saying, find out what you're really into online, because no one ever told you should be. But I'm curious about the historical side of it. The review mentioned how our view of work has changed so much. Did people always, search for that passion in their job?
It's so interesting, right? Millard talks about how, for centuries, work was just work. It was about survival, not about finding your dream job.
You worked to live, not the other way around. So
Yeah.
When did that shift happen, this pressure to find work that's also like your calling?
He points to the Protestant Reformation, actually. This idea of a calling emerged. Work wasn't just about, getting by.
It had a higher purpose.
Exactly. Serving God, contributing to society.
Okay, but that can be a lot of pressure too, right? Like, are you on the right path, working hard enough?
Right. It's a double-edged sword, for sure. That constant striving. It's admirable, but can lead to burnout if you're not careful.
Got to find that balance, I guess. Which is where Millard's designing for liking work really resonated. Not just finding a job, but shaping it,
Being proactive.
Yeah.
Instead of taking whatever comes your way, you're actively.
Designing a career that you actually enjoy. I like that.
That's a good way to think about it.
So instead of, I got to make $1 million, it's more about...
It would feel meaningful even if you, quote unquote, failed.
Because success doesn't always have to look the same for everyone.
Exactly. It's about your values, what's important to you.
Which, again, takes some self-reflection. What do you actually enjoy? What are you good at?
And that's why Millard talks about experimenting,
Mm-hmm.
trying things out. He even has this idea of mini retirements.
Oh, yeah, I read about those. Taking a break to, like, reset sounds terrifying, but also kind of amazing.
It does. Not everyone can just press pause on their life, of course.
Definitely not.
But the principle applies, Find ways to experiment, even if it's just a few hours a week on a new hobby, something like that.
Just to shake things up. Get unstuck.
Exactly.
So say someone's listening, right? They feel that pull, that pathless path calling to them, but the uncertainty is just, like, paralyzing. What then?
It's tough. Fear's a powerful thing. But Miller talks about how we tend to, overestimate the cost of changing, you know,
Yeah.
and underestimate the cost of staying stuck.
We'd rather stick with the devil we know, even if it's making us miserable.
Exactly. And he suggests some tools to deal with that fear, like Tim Ferriss's fear-setting exercise.
That one was big for me, too, reading through your notes. Not ignoring the fear, but really, like, dissecting it.
Yeah. It's not magic, it's practical. Write it all down, worst-case scenarios, the whole 9 yards.
And then what?
Then you come up with plans. What can you actually do to mitigate those risks? Often, just seeing it on paper takes away its power.
It's like shining a spotlight on those monsters under the bed. Suddenly, they're not so scary. Plus, like you were saying, the internet makes it so much easier to experiment these days. You can dip your toes in without, like, going all in.
Totally. Build a website, share your writing, whatever it is, without needing anyone's permission.
You can think in public, like Millard says, test things out, see what sticks. It's exciting.
It is. And it reminds us that life, it's not a dress rehearsal. We've got this one shot. Why not spend it doing something that lights us up?
Right. Embrace the abundance, not the scarcity. Which brings us to that final thought from the sources, this idea of generosity as, like, the ultimate form of wealth.
Yes. Such a powerful concept. It's not about hoarding what you have, but sharing it, giving back.
Because there's enough to go around, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that generosity, that abundance mindset, it doesn't just impact others, it changes you.
It's like that saying, the more you give, the more you receive. But it's not even about receiving, really, is it? It's about the act of giving itself. Yeah.
Exactly. So, as you continue to explore these ideas, the pathless path, all of it, ask yourself, how can I be more generous? How can my work, my life, make a positive impact?
Great question to leave us with. And on that note, we'll wrap up this deep dive. Hope it sparks some ideas for you all. Until next time, remember, the pathless path, it's yours to create.